Hi, Peter Helms, vigortransformations, and what I want to discuss today is kind of what happens with our upper body as we age or even when we're younger. A lot of times our shoulder or humerus gets pulled in, and it's because of the pec and also because of rotator cuffs, lats, you kind of name it. Everything's going into this bone, and as we kind of age, the muscles get really tight and taut, and they're not allowing us to get our full ranges of motion anymore. And all too often we're kind of left wondering, well, why do I get an elbow pain or wrist pain, when we're not realizing, again, everything that has to do with the arm is reflective upon the shoulder. So I need good shoulder mobility in order to reduce or fix kind of any injuries I have to my extremities in my elbow or in my wrist. And even myself included, I realized over the years, focusing on chest pressing and pushing, that my pec had become so tight that it pulled the shoulder complex in. And through using of hypervolt, I've been able to reduce the inflammation, increase range of motion, even get the fascia moving down my arm, which I didn't even realize how tight it had become over the years. Everything just kind of happens really slowly over time, and we're just not realizing what happens to our body. Everybody's assuming that everything's working properly until we have a pain. Unfortunately, that's not kind of true. When we get the pain, things have been going wrong for a while, and we should have been kind of trying to address them sooner. The hard part is trying to figure out how to address the issues that we have with our body. So if I had like an elbow pain, I'm going to start focusing on the shoulder complex first. I may kind of try and reduce some of the inflammation or pain in the elbow, but first I got to figure out, well, why is my shoulder not moving the way it should? Do I have full range of motion? Am I getting restricted? Like when I come across this way, I can feel a kind of tightness right through here. And I started to notice that it was my deltoid. And if you kind of think about it, if my shoulder gets pulled in, now the front deltoid can't really fire properly. Rear deltoid, middle deltoid have to start taking over, among other things. And all too often we're kind of told, shoulders back and kind of chest out. And I'm realizing it's having a really kind of bad influence on us all in terms of our posture. I tried it for years and realized that my chest couldn't develop because of it. So what I started to do is loosen the tissue in between kind of my pectoral and my humerus, and I finally almost got it back into the position that it should be in, or probably that it was maybe in my 20s. I'm noticing with my left side, because it's kind of been out of whack even longer, the tissue down in the arm and the bicep are really kind of just tight, I guess, for lack of better words. If you think about it, the muscle tightness and kind of we lose space in each joint. And through this, I've been doing it on both sides. If you've been following along, and you'll notice that now I've got better range of motion or space in between each joint. I can feel the tissue starting to stretch. All too often we're trying to do stretches and we're going here. Well, if my shoulder's not in the right place, I'm not going to get a full stretch in that bicep. Same thing kind of goes for the tricep. I really need to be kind of stretching forward, if anything. So a lot of times what I'm doing is taking my arm, kind of pulling or reaching forward, and then kind of working the fascia here to loosen up. All too often our deltoids, very similar to our glutes, are just kind of getting locked up, and this is why it appears a lot of times that we don't have muscle in a lot of these places, when in actuality we do. The muscle's just gotten so tight that it can't flex or make a muscle anymore, because what it needs to do is be soft and malleable and able to shorten and lengthen anymore. And a lot of times it's not lengthening and shortening. I know my deltoids had the tissue here just became just so tight. If you think about it, they don't really move that much. It should be a big stabilizer, and if the tissue is just kind of really rock hard or solid, it can't really do its job anymore. So now it has to bring in the other muscles, and this is why all too often our small muscles are becoming too involved, and then we're focusing and kind of blaming everything on these small muscles doing too much work, when we should be kind of figuring out, well, why are they doing too much work? And it's because the big muscles are getting too tight and kind of shutting down, and then the secondary muscles have to kind of start kicking in more and more. And this happens systematically throughout our entire body, and kind of by going to key junction points throughout the body, you can start to release and get better movement through all these. I recently gotten a new hypervolt And the more powerful one, it works, incredibly well. I've been getting into, again, these kind of areas that the tissues is so hard and tight. And, with the vibrations of the machine, what it slowly does is start to kind of break that tissue up. And now I can start to kind of maybe either pull or stretch in different positions. I had started thinking I was going to start bringing in exercise a little bit sooner. I know I made a couple videos of me exercising with these, and I realized while it's helpful, I'm going to kind of stick to cycling and a couple other just kind of maybe cardio-based movement patterns, mostly cycling, because mainly it kind of draws in the core, technically works the upper and lower if you're out on the streets and actually cycling. I've noticed better mechanics while cycling, probably better than I ever have been. And I started cycling in my 20s and realized, again, my tightness was restricting me in so many ways, honestly, is the main reason. And a lot of times I think when we're strength training, we're thinking we're getting that full length tension relationship, but we're not. It does keep the fascia moving, which is great, but I want to kind of documentate what can be done without exercise or kind of minimal exercise. I'm trying to stay away from the strength training, just the cycling. What I'm going to kind of do is finish off a little bit here. I'm going to work the right side a little bit because I noticed the tissue in the fascia is like really kind of ready to move. Also on my left side, I know I got to break this tissue up a little bit more. I always had a hard time flexing my left bicep. I still can. I can feel the tricep kind of kicking in, and that's what I noticed. Tricep comes down and it gets this kind of stuck here. That's why kind of a lot of people, maybe the tricep kind of flaps in the wind, lunch lady arms or whatever they want to call it. And it's because, again, we're doing this and the triceps just don't really get that work that they normally do because we need to be doing a lot of kind of pushing movement patterns. I think I'll make a separate video of the actual release of here. I guess I'll do a little bit real quick. Really, you're kind of looking for, I'll put this on a lower setting. So I noticed the tissue kind of down in the elbow joint, where the biceps kind of come through, really tight. So I'm going to kind of pull a little bit on the table here, trying to get the shoulder to get extended. And while I'm doing this too, I should say a lot of times we're kind of tensing. I'm not tensing, I'm kind of staying loose, just a finger grip, trying to use my body weight to lean back. And I can feel the tissue now wanting to kind of separate. Now you could do this with a TRX, you could do it with a couple other things which I think are going to be kind of invaluable. But all too often, we're using what I would call like a death grip for years. When people are grabbing things, I used to think it was weakness throughout the body, especially the upper body, but I'm realizing now that it was just tightness. And that's why people start to have to use their hands more. If you think about it, as we age, or people age, maybe have a harder time opening a canister or something like that. And again, a lot of times we think it's weakness, but it's kind of tightness that makes us weak. And once we kind of start realizing this and that it can be changed kind of drastically, honestly, I'm amazed at how much scar tissue I have on my body. And, I've been exercising pretty much my whole adulthood, played sports, and was amazed at the findings of this. And then I'm actually amazed at kind of once we kind of systematically start to loosen and work the body, that we can kind of really promote and really actually change our posture for the better. There's no way that you can kind of exercise bad posture out. It's hard, especially as you get older. Your core just kind of gets stuck where it is. I'm going to do one about that too, in terms of, how our core and just our tissue in general just kind of gets stuck, and we kind of hold these postures. We tend to be able to think we can move well, and that may be true in our kind of everyday life, but there's always something like maybe reaching in the back of the car you can't do, or reaching up for something that maybe you're scared to do or don't want to do because, again, maybe you had a pain, or you can just kind of feel the tightness. And we're all too often thinking that we need to strengthen these movement patterns when at first we want to loosen up the tissue, and then we can kind of start to strengthen the movements, and they'll actually naturally start to strengthen on their own, in my opinion, once you kind of are able to start moving a little bit better. So just to kind of help this along, same thing, going to grab the table and get into that pectoral area. Now I noticed on the outside of my delt, so I'm just going to hit that a little bit. Now, when I'm working with people, there's a huge kind of system that I go through that should be done kind of in the other videos that I've showed. You know, this is kind of one of the key ways to go or to start. We're kind of focusing on that chest area, and then the big area is kind of the back of the shoulder. And this also often too, just real quick, is why I realized I had a hard time developing my chest, because my arm wasn't sitting, even when I was in my 20s and working out, I realized it wasn't sitting where it should be. And I had developed kind of scar tissue up into my rectus abdominis where it connects to the rib cage. I had actually thought that, you know, the tissue had gotten so hard here, I've actually been able to break it up. This was my rib cage. I didn't realize that I had